I know what you're thinking. Thinking, is this guy for real? The answer is yes. Happy holidays from Lodge Card Club. Today we've got, right through the store, a live stream that is Christmas sweater themed, and as such, I'm dressed very appropriately. We are playing the old 510, which is not 510. It is going to be 5, 10, 25 at least, probably 50, maybe even sometimes 100. Good luck wishes are appreciated. Let's go, let's get in there, report back soon.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, etc. Hope you guys are feeling at least partially as festive as this live stream studio is looking. Just look at all those colors and festivities and festiveness going on in this room. Colorful cast of characters, including myself, your host, Andrew Neeme, locked in, playing a session of 510, but straddles on all the time. So somewhere in the neighborhood of like a 5-10-25 or 25-50, this game will play somewhere in that neighborhood. Let's just get right into it. Let's play some cards. We're starting with a stack of $2,000. That's the max buy-in to kick things off. Here we go. In this hand, the $25 is on in front of the llama, and action folds all the way around to me in the small blind, looking down at the Jack 4 of hearts. I tend to put a lot of pressure on myself as both a co-owner of the establishment as well as a content creator to keep my VPIP numbers above a certain threshold. And that's going to be a theme, I think, throughout this video, and we'll talk about that more later on towards the end. But as you can see in this hand, the Jack 4 of hearts, far from mandatory to play. But with two suited cards, I'm very often going to be in there when it's folded to me. So in this case, I raise it up to $100, and I got Big Tony on my direct left, who makes the call, and the aforementioned llama defends his straddle. Flop comes Queen 7-4 with two spades, giving us bottom pair here. A lot of times, especially in heads-up situations with bottom pair, you can put your foot on the gas. It's one of the more reasonable scenarios to turn a pair into a bluff across multiple streets. We block bottom set here. Top set is very unlikely since this is a single raise pot. Two pairs somewhat unlikely, although not impossible, but blocking two pairs as well gives us another reason to go ahead and start semi-bluffing here. But I think out of position versus two players with those two ranges, it's at least going to be a little bit tougher to get through. So I start with a check here, out of position versus the two players, and action ends up checking through. Turn doesn't help us, puts another spade on board. We don't have any of those spades, so I check it over to these guys again. Big Tony checks it, and the llama does not check it. This time he fires out for a wager. I'm not going to hang on with my third pair here. Decide to let this one go. And we could just go ahead and reveal the cards here. We see Big Tony has a lock on this hand here on the turn with a flush. Llama's got the second best hand. He's going to dust off some money in this hand, but the Jack 4 loses no additional dollars aside from the unnecessary pre-flop raise.
And he's going to show the floor.
In this next hand, the knit game is underway. That is what those little package present looking things in front of us are there to denote. I put the $25 straddle on in this hand, and Big Tony is first to act. And he comes in for a sizable raise, $150. I actually like this. I think when the knit game is on, chances are you're playing more hands. You're going to get less credit for your hands. You're trying to win hands one way or the other. So why not size up and try and get some more fold equity and or more value for your strong hands from those non-believers. Anyway, $150 it is from Big Tony. Llama makes the call on his direct left, and action folds around to me in the straddle spot. We look down at 10-3 of clubs, another one of those scenarios with two suited cards. I got the straddle on. We're playing the knit game. I'll be in there defending, definitely on the looser side, but maybe there's a case to be made for it. Maybe not, but maybe. By the way, check out that Detroit Lions Christmas sweater. Is that a beauty or what? All right, three ways to a flop. That comes down ace, jack, 7 with two clubs. That gives us the 10-high flush draw. Backdoor straight draw. Check it over to Big Tony, who fires out here for $225. He's firing a C-bet into two players here. He was first to act in this hand. So even though the knit game is on, he is showing a fair amount of strength here, and so much strength that Llama has himself the pocket kings and just lets it go after one bet here. Can't blame him. Ace on board, three ways, releases the pocket kings, and it's over to us. And I'm going back and forth in my mind in this spot. The knit game is on. We're not really that deep. We started with less than $2,000 in our stack. And so with the $25 straddle being on, we're starting this hand somewhere around 72 big blinds effective. Not incredibly short, but definitely not deep. So it seems very close to me between just check raising all in here with our flush draw. Because if we do get snapped off by the hands that first position raiser will often have, ace, king, all the way up to top set, it's not like we're dead. We've got a flush draw. And with the knit game being on, maybe ranges are wide enough where the check raise all in just gets through often enough. Seems like a close call though, again, with the initial raise coming from the first position and him c-betting into 2 players. So after some considerable thought, I decide to go ahead and make the call. Turn is the 3 of hearts, second heart, second flush draw on board now. Check it over to Tony once again. He's not done firing. Fires out here for $475. Still showing a fair amount of strength with his hand, although it's not a very big bet compared to the size of the pot. Still a little bit of a decision, though. He is firing away here. We do pick up some more outs, so we're either going to be calling or we're going to be jamming all in here. Folding is certainly out of the question. Decide once again to just take our equity to the river with a call, looking for a 3, a 10, or a club, which does not materialize on the river. It's an offsuit 9. Check it over to Big Tony once again. Maybe we have some semblance of showdown value. Not really feeling like it since we blocked some of the draws and it's just bottom pair here. Big Tony fires once again. I give him the credit and I go ahead and slide my cards into the muck. After which, Big Tony proudly rolls over the 4 deuce of hearts. Just wrecked in this hand. Took the check call, check fold line, and we get punished. When we could have taken the check raise all in line on the flop, we would have actually been check raising all in with the best hand. 10 high was good on the flop, good on the turn, good on the river. Would have got it through on the flop and got to release our knit button or knit package. Instead, we lose a bunch of dollars. Kudos to Big Tony for muscling this one through. That little misadventure puts us into the hole early on in this game. We add on for another $1,000 here, add on an additional $1,000 not too long after that, but we're starting off in early trading down around $1,000. Same knit game still in effect here. We fast forward to hand number 24. Yours truly has been a little bit on the card dead side of things. In this hand, the $25 straddle is on once again, and we see Florida Bill coming in for a limp out of the hijack. Next to act is the Kid, and he is one of 3 players who still has a knit button in front of him. The Kid raises it up to $100, and it's over to me, who is also one of the 3 remaining players that have a knit button in front of him. I look down at the ace-10 offsuit in the small blind, and we've got ourselves an interesting spot here with the knit game in effect. I'm pretty sure we want to play this hand versus a player who is raising with the knit button in front of him as the knit game is winding down. Question is, do we want to call out of position with ace-10 offsuit? Do we want to 3-bet to some non-all-in sizing and potentially have to play out of position with that hand? Or do we just want to grab a bunch of chips, a lot of chips, all the chips, and drop them over the betting line? Once again, with that $25 straddle on, we're not that deep. The Kid is $2,100 effective, according to these graphics. That is, once again, less than 100 big blinds. Maybe it's a punt. Definitely could be a punt. Fairly decent chance, but I'm going to go for it. I know the Kid is going to be getting after it. I know he doesn't just knit it up in these stream games. And like I said, we are both each one of 3 players to have a knit button left in front of them. I'm going to go for it here. I'm going to stick all the money in here. Hope we don't get snapped off, but if we do, we'll often have somewhere around 30% chance to win the hand anyway. Take the aggressive route this time, drop the chips over the line, and on my direct left, Big Tony gets out of the way before action over to the llama, and this is not a good sign. Starts eyeing my stack, inquiring about how much it is, and eventually musters up all of his chips and pushes them out over the betting line. So it looks like we may have run into it here. Action folds back around to the Kid who had a worse ace than us. He's got himself the ace-7 offsuit, and of course versus 2 all-ins, he's out of the way. Maybe we had the right idea, but unfortunately we run into a hand behind us as the llama has the pocket 10s. Not a great sign because according to the graphics, we only have 18% now to win this hand. The Kid folded one of the aces. Big Tony also happened to have the ace of diamonds. According to my math, that leaves 1 lone ace left. We're going to need some spades, or we're going to need to find that last ace. And we're going to run the boards twice to try and find it. Some unfortunate timing. We took the aggressive route when we ran straight into it here with the pocket 10s. We took the passive route previously when my opponent did not have it and we had the 4 high. So to steal a phrase from Slick Rick's book, we are zigging when we should be zagging, and now we are properly in the hole in this game. All right, guys, time for a little pro tip. You know what I like to do when I'm stuck $4,000? I like to get pocket aces. Let's go, lock in. $25 straddle on in front of Florida Bill. We make it $100 to go, and action folds around to Florida Bill, praying we don't just raise and take it here. And after some thought, Florida Bill does decide to defend his straddle. So we go heads up to a flop that comes down pretty safe, looking for the pocket aces. King 6-5, 2 hearts. Checks it over to me. We're going to c-bet here. We do still have our nit button in front of us, so thinking hopefully we'll get a little bit less credit than we might normally. Don't down bet here. Fire out for $125. And unfortunately, Florida Bill has nothing. He's got the Jack-10 offsuit. And shout out to Jenny. She is one of the newest poker bloggers on YouTube. She's got somewhere around 10 videos up on her channel. But unfortunately for her, she is going to have to pay the nit tax as she's the last one standing with the nit button in front of her. And more importantly, we get very little value with these pocket aces. You hate to see it. All right, things are continuing to look up as we've got a mobile bar cart making its way into the studio, courtesy of Odds Bar and Bistro, now open, serving the public as well as Lodge Card Club. Some fantastically delicious cocktails are going to be made tableside while this game is underway. And in this hand, which is now underway, we see Florida Bill coming in for the raise. He makes it $75 to go over the straddle, which is in front of Skull Mike. Over to us in the cutoff spot, looking down at Ace-Queen offsuit. Could call, could 3-bet. Either way seems fine. I decide to put in the 3-bet this time, make it $250 to go. I think anything between 3 and 4x is probably going to be fine for sizing. $250 it is. Big Tony thinks about it for a little while before making the laydown with the Jack-10 suited. Seems borderline illegal in Texas, but that's okay. Action folds back around to Florida Bill, who is in there. He goes ahead and tosses in the 250, and we go heads up to a flop. Flop comes down 8-7-4 rainbow. One of those kinds of flops that is not good for the pre-flop 3-better range. Much better for the pre-flop caller. That's not to say I'll never have pocket 8s or the 5-6 suited here. I feel like generally if I'm going to c-bet, I would like to have some sort of connectivity with the board. Maybe a backdoor flush draw, maybe an ace-6 suited, maybe an ace-4 suited. In this case, board is bad for my range and bad for my hand, so I check it back. The drinks are being described and they are being served while the hand progresses. And on the turn, we improve to top pair. Florida Bill decides to lead out in this spot. He fires out for $150. It's not a big wager and it's an interesting spot here. I don't know if the smart poker kids are still using the term capped, but I do feel like we're a little bit capped when we check back on the flop. We're not really going to have too many traps here. Maybe in theory land we're supposed to, but I'm not really going to have any. So since we're very often going to have just a one pair type of hand here, I just decide to call and not raise, and we head to the river, which is an offsuit 9. Bill checks it over to me now, and I'm pretty certain I have the best hand. Feel like he would fire out on the river here with a good hand. So basically I am just targeting top pairs that are worse than mine with a wager, and I decide on a bet size of $500 here. Maybe even that is a little bit on the large side, but it doesn't seem egregious. You like ace-jack, ace-10, those hands are often going to want to pay to see. Could have gone maybe a little bit smaller, but in this exact instance, it doesn't matter much because Florida Bill has himself the pocket 5s, and that hand is not going to be calling on this run out. We add $450 to our stack, and we're going to get served some fine drinks from Odds Bar and Bistro here. Stakes have risen in this hand as Big Tony has the $50 straddle on in front of him. Hand number 38 here, and we see a raise from the kid out of the small blind up to $200. We look down at pocket 4s, happy to make the call and go set mining. And Big Tony defends his $50 straddle with a call as well. So 3 ways to a favorable one. Things are looking up around here. King 5-4, 2 clubs. The kid, unfortunately, does not continue with a c-bet. Looks like it's going to be on us to start building a pot. I fire out here for $300, which is a little bit under half pot. Could even go a little bit bigger here. We unblock all the good stuff. Top pairs, flush draws, straight draws available. But as it turns out, $300 is going to be too much money for these specific holdings to continue, as Big Tony has ace-10 and the kid has 8-6 of diamonds. Very sad. You hate to see it, not getting a wealth of dollars with our hands that do connect. Not a good formula for success. Clawing and scratching our way a little bit towards back to even, slowly but hopefully surely. Nick Game is actually back on in this hand, and I have been quite card dead in between hands here. We're on hand number 49 of the stream now, and there's a little bit of miscommunication, I think, about the straddling going on in early position. But anyway, the straddle is not on, but we do see John coming in for the $50 raise in first position here. Skull Mike makes the call, an action over to the kid who puts in the 3-bet here, bumps it up to $175, and it's over to me. Now, the knit game in effect, and it's just myself and the kid with knit buttons in front of us still. As mentioned, the kid likes to get after it, not a knit, despite being one of the last two to have a knit button here. And it's over to me on the button looking down at ace-3 offsuit. Interesting scenario here. We are no longer quite as shallow as the kid has another $4,200 behind him, but one of those spots where ranges are going to be wide. With stacks a little bit deeper and a different player coming in for the under the gun raise, as well as the player next to him coming in for the call, we're not just going to be shipping our stacks in this configuration. I think I'm going to get after it here, though. We've got ourselves an ace. We've got removal to some good hands. And again, it's just us two with knit buttons in front of us. So I'm going to get after it. I'm going to put in the 4-bet here, bump it up to $650 with my ace-3 offsuit. It's a pre-flop bluff. We're hoping to find some folds and action back around to John, the initial raiser, who's got himself the king-jack of diamonds. It's not nothing, but with a 3-bet and a 4-bet behind him, he decides to get out of the way. Skull Mike, he's got himself a small pair. He's got pocket fives. Same kind of situation. He'd love to see a flop, but a little bit too pricey now. He makes the fold and action back over to the kid who is thinking about it. He asks, how much is it to lose the knit game? Which is what you like to hear. I proudly and confidently announce it's $400. That's a smaller amount than my 4-bet here. So I'm hoping he finds the fold, and eventually fold he does. He's got himself the queen-9 offsuit. It's not exactly a hand that you want to go to war with. And we find some run good in this situation against the only other player who had a knit button, and the ace comes through. It was a value raise. It wasn't a bluff. It was a value raise. All right, guys, time for another Neeme pro tip. When you guys are stuck, get aces multiple times in a session. Here, the $25 straddle is on, and we are in the hijack looking down at the ace of diamonds and the ace of clubs, raised up to $75. You love to see what happens next. Llama coming in for the 3-bet off of the button, makes it $230 to go. Skull Mike is crazy. He's doing Skull Mike things. He eventually folds the Jack-10 suited. Now he is also banned from the club. And action over to Florida Bill, who decides he's got a little something. He wants to put in the cold call. Tosses in the $230. We will not be calling, my friends. It's going to be time to put in another raise. We're going to go ahead and 4-bet. Question is, what size? I have no idea. Eventually, I decide on a sizing of $850. Action back over to the Llama, who has to deal with Skull Mike behind him, doing Skull Mike things. He eventually makes the call, and Florida Bill calls very quickly. So we've got a 3-way 4-bet pot here. The good guy's taking pocket aces into battle. Flop comes down, queen 10-5 with 2 spades. Not the most comfortable of flops in the world, but this is a 4-bet pot, and we've got somewhere around $4,700 left in our stack. We're not going to be looking for reasons to fold these aces. We're going to start value betting right here on the flop. Fire out on this flop for $900. Straight draws, flush draws, and pairs once again available. Looking to get value as Llama thinks about it for a little bit, checks his cards, and then slides the $900 over the betting line. Florida Bill out of the way, so we are now heads up, heading to a turn card, which is a 3 of spades, putting 3 spades on board here. We're going to worry about it a little bit less so in 4-bet pots. That's not to say it's completely without worry, but as mentioned, we're just going to be looking for ways to get all the money in here. Question is, should we check and then jam rivers? Should we jam now, or should we bet some other amount? Guys, I'm not going to pretend I know what the solution is here in 4-bet pots 3 ways. Ripping it all in here definitely makes some sense. I feel like if I had an ace-king hand with the ace of spades, or maybe even the king of spades, I would take that route, try and maximize our fold equity versus a queen versus pocket jacks. If we bet a smaller amount, it doesn't leave too much fold equity left on the river. We also give a reasonable price to some flush draws, but I don't completely hate it. I don't mind spreading our sizes across all 3 streets here. If there's not much fold equity left on the river, then maybe we'll be able to get all the value on the river. So I decide on a sizing of $1,400 here on the turn. Llama hits the wine. It's pretty good. It came from Odds Next Door. Have I mentioned Odds Bar and Bistro? He checks his cards, he grabs some chips, and drops $1,400 into the middle. We're off to a river card here. Don't really want to see a spade, and it's a much better sight as it's an offsuit 5. If for some reason my opponent happened to have queen 10 suited here, we can beat that now. Doesn't really change too much aside from that, and we've got not too much money left behind. That's going to leave only one option here. We're going to go ahead and stick the rest of the chips into the middle. Just about $2,400, hoping we don't get snapped off here. and we do not. Next plan of action is to hope we're not getting slow rolled. And I think we fade that after a little bit of time. After that, we just get to sit back and enjoy the tanking of the llama.
Llama in the blender. He called the turn with the
Good price, but
jacks with the flush draw.
like he has it.
Meaningless 5.
He's got it.
You would have to imagine.
He's like, well, I've got two
John,
Two red
if you run out of
kings.
chips,
but I'm
we'll
so
let you play
short
for
that I
10
don't
chips.
fear
You
anything.
bring us free drinks.
I'll value bet and hope to get called.
I'm all over it. For
Got
how
the
much?
blockers, the wrong blockers.
50,000.
What does the wine say, Llama? What does the palate say?
I think it's pretty good, but
Pout tell me to let go of this one.
I don't know.
But then again, he could have ace-4 suited.
He could have ace-4 suited. Of spades.
Yeah, that makes more space.
That's true. It's always a... Nah,
Nah.
he doesn't have that one.
Nah.
Impossible. What if he has ace-5 of diamonds?
Ace-5 of diamonds.
No, he wouldn't have been so amused by his river bet.
Never.
He had trips. He'd be like, whoa, I got trips.
Gotta love Llama.
Damn it.
What do you have, Llama, for the fans around the table?
What's a good Christmas?
Got one of those?
Not
Got one of those.
He shows Neeme his cards.
jiggities.
Couple of jiggities.
A little homage
Shout
to
out.
fellow Brad.
Shout out to the Jiggities.
What does, do you want to call? Why don't you call Brad Owen right now? Can we get a phone in here? We'll allow a phone. You call Brad.
You got a satellite phone?
What do I do?
Yeah. If he answers the phone, you call. If he doesn't answer, it's a full.
Poker etiquette completely out the window in a Christmas game. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's random. It's a flip. It will be
And it's
randomized.
taking way too long.
Wow.
All right, we're gonna randomize.
Ooh, good luck.
Let Jenny pick. Let Jenny pick.
No.
Put it up. Put this on Jenny.
Absolutely not.
Put this
all
on
right.
Jenny. Or Safi.
Well, I won't tell you what it means, so just me.
Are you locked in?
No.
Lock it in.
I want to see if I'm disappointed.
Locked in. Lock it in. Lock it in.
I got the fold one.
It's a fold.
He lays it down.
Good fold. Good fold.
Andrew Neme's gonna win a nice one.
Llama goes super deep into the tank. He eventually randomizes, decides it's a 50-50 spot, picks the card that tells him he should fold his hand, and fold it he does. I'm not completely certain that he was 50-50. Doesn't matter, because he sends those pocket jacks into the muck, and it is a good fold. However, he happened to arrive at it. Guys, time for another one of Andrew's pro tips to success in poker. And have I mentioned that you guys should get pocket aces if you're stuck in a session? Third time looking down at pocket aces, my friend. This time it comes after a raise to $175 over a $50 straddle in front of myself, mind you. We see Skull Mike coming in for the 3-bet out of the small blind to $450. Things you love to see when you look down at pocket aces. It's already been 3-bet in front of me. Now we just have to figure out what size we want to go with. And my very scientific thought process lands on a 4-bet of $1,100. Action back over to Big Tony, who started this little party here. He's in the hijack spot, thinking things over, chatting away with his Christmas tree looking hat on, and eventually decides it's a little bit too rich for the pocket nines. Sends those into the muck, and it's back over to Skull Mike, who was putting in a bit of a pre-flop bluff here with the ace-jack offsuit. We have that hand crushed, but unfortunately that will not be continuing in a 4-bet pot. Not quite as much action with these aces this time, but it is a profit of $670 without a flop. If you guys don't believe me that you should try and get pocket aces multiple times when you're stuck, just check out this cumulative winnings graphic. That green color and that plus sign in front of the dollar amount next to my name, that means we are unstuck. All I had to do was get aces 3 times. Simple. In this next hand, the $25 straddle is on, and we look down at the Jack 10 suited in the low jack. I don't want to get banned from the club forever, so I put in the raise. I make it $125 to go. I'm not exactly sure why I made it 5x in this scenario. It doesn't look like the nit game is on, unless we just can't see from this camera angle. but I don't see any of those knit buttons, packages, presents in front of anyone. But 125 it is, which Big Tony agrees to. He makes the call on the hijack. Florida Bill, he makes the call out of the big blind. And the kid, closing the action, makes the call in the $25 straddle. So 4 ways to a flop, which comes down at King 5 deuce with 2 clubs. 2 checks over to me. We got ourselves a flush draw on a king high board. I think if the board was more middling and connected, then I might find some more checks. But when it comes ace high or king high as the preflop raiser, I think I'm going to find more c-bets here with my flush draws. So I start off with a wager of $225. Tend to size down a little bit multi-way. Our equity share of the pot goes down in multi-way situations, which is a fancy way of saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. 225 it is. Big Tony makes the call. Florida Bill and the kid are both out of there. So heads up to a turn card, which is a beautiful looking ace of clubs. That's a jack high flush with a royal flush redraw. In the moment, I decide to go for some more value immediately. I fire out for $325 here. But in hindsight, I'm wondering if this might be a good spot to go for the trap. We've got ourselves the second nuts with the jack high flush, and we block the third nuts having the 10 of clubs in our hand. And even if we disregard the flush, with the turn being an ace, that's going to make it tough to get value from a hand like king queen, king jack, king 10, king 9 suited. We might want to take a card off here and allow the occasional hand to maybe find trips or 2 pair on the river. And as we can see, Big Tony just has pocket 7s. So maybe we find a miracle 7 of diamonds on the river, which would allow us to get paid a little bit of money. We're never getting value from pocket 7s with no club, and it doesn't seem like Big Tony is ever going to be too strong here, aside from the times when we happen to cooler a worse flush. A flush is going to value bet the turn, so we're going to get money through those hands anyway. So in hindsight, kind of like a check here, as it is, no additional value to be found from pocket 7s. All right, the old $50 straddle is on in this hand, 5, 10, 25, 50 here at the lodge. We see Jenny coming in for the raise out of the low jack spot up to $150. We got the pocket 8s, the 2 snowies. We're in the hijack. We make the call. Maybe some 3-betting to do in this configuration, but Jenny has not been getting out of line during this session. Call feels good. Llama makes the call on the button. Florida Bill makes the call. And the kid makes the call. So we've got ourselves a nice little friendly 5-way pot heading to the flop, which comes down queen 7 4 rainbow. Just the 1 over card to the pocket 8s here. So when Jenny assembles a wager, she fires out for $375. Maybe a little bit close, 5 ways. It's going to be tough to improve with our 8s, but maybe we can represent some stuff on some various runouts. Think we'll have the best hand once in a while. Decide to make the call here, and the other players get out of the way. Just a couple of vloggers going heads up to a turn card, which comes down the King of Hearts, second heart now. Obviously not a great card for my hand. Doesn't feel like a great card for my range either. So when Jenny checks it over to me, just going to take a free card here, head to the river and see what happens. River comes down an offsuit 6 and presents a little bit of some interestingness. We've got 2 blockers to the nuts. We would need to be in there with like an 8-5 suited. But once Jenny fires out here for $1,400, right around full pot size wager, I think that shuts the door on any of those ideas. If she put out the blocker bet, I think we could go for it. Versus the full pot size wager, it's tough to find the bluff raise here. And I don't think we're going to be calling with pocket 8s on this board. So we decided to let it go. And good thing we didn't go for any spiciness in this hand, as Jenny happened to have the pocket kings for top set. Pretty interesting. It's actually pretty similar to the Jack 10 of clubs hand that we just played. In both of these instances, the preflop raiser turned the nuts, or basically the nuts, on a card that was an overcard to the flop and had their opponent drawing dead heading to the river. I think Jenny took the optimal line here. She checked it over to me. If I would have hit an 8, it would have been a disaster for me. And if she bets the turn, I'm just going to fold anyway. So that's a pretty cool illustration of what I think I should have done with the Jack 10 of clubs. Kind of funny that that hand happened immediately after, and you see an actual good poker player who happens to be a poker blogger illustrate what you should do in that kind of a spot. Or I don't know what you should or shouldn't do, but definitely a reasonable, very reasonable option. All right, in this next hand, number 85 off of the deck, we've got the $100 straddle on in front of Big Tony. 5, 10, 25, 50, 100. An action over to Skull Mike on the button, who comes in for the $300 raise. We're looking down at pocket 9s. We're in the UTG1 spot. Oh, and by the way, the knit game is on. Gotta think Skull Mike's going to be getting after it here at least a little bit. He's got the button. He's got a knit button in front of him. And even though that $100 straddle on pushes the price of poker up, he can be in there. So I think pocket 9s rates to be the best hand a lot of the time. And I think a 3-bet with our medium pocket pair here is reasonable. It's not going to be a small amount. I go ahead and 3-bet up to $1,400, and the action folds around back to Skull Mike on the button. He's thinking things over here. This is not going to be an easy hand to play. It's not super comfortable because there's already just about $3,000 in the middle. And it's not going to be the kind of hand that improves all that often, and there's very often going to be overcards to our pocket pair. This is one of those instances when the flop comes down King 7-3 Rainbow. Not a terrible flop for our range, all things considered. We're often going to be the ones to have Ace-King here. With a $100 straddle on, we are once again both less than 100 big blinds effective. Got to think Ace-King would find another re-raise here pre-flop. Some other kings in his range, of course. Pocket 7s and pocket 3s in there too. So I think we'll have the nuts advantage, but still somewhat of a fair fight on this board. I'm going to start with a wager here. I fire out for $750. Keep pairs that are worse than mine in there and interested. Giving an okay price to a hand like Ace-Queen, especially if there's a backdoor flush draw. Those hands are going to go nowhere. Could see going a little bit bigger since the pocket 9s could benefit from some more protection, but that's the price. But Skull Mike has other ideas here. $750 is not enough. He says, let's make it $1,800 to go here. Very interesting spot. It's a very small raise, representing a pretty narrow range of hands here. Pretty much just pocket 7s, pocket 3s, maybe a King 7 suited that somehow raised and called pre-flop. Don't think the two pairs are all that frequent, but not completely impossible with the nit game going on. It's only about $1,000 more to call in my spot, so getting a very good price here. We're going to go ahead and make this call, but it's definitely not comfortable here. Head to a turn card, which brings in another king, the King of Hearts, second heart. I check it over to Skull Mike, who couldn't check back any faster. Snap checks this one back. Really not too sure what to make of this situation now as we head to the river, which is the 5 of hearts. I think I would check my full range here if I happen to have a hand like pocket 7s. If I happen to have Ace-King, I think I would check it over to Skull Mike because I would expect him to either have a hand like 6-5 suited, 4-5 suited, something of that nature where he's going to feel compelled to bluff the river, or he's going to have a king sometimes, and I don't think he's going to be taking a king to showdown when I check it over to him again. Maybe possibly some random hands like 8-7 of hearts, 9-7 of hearts. Those types of hands are usually going to find a call on the flop, though. Anyway, don't see too much point in putting in a bet here with my pocket 9s. So check it over to Skull Mike once again here on the river, who decides he's not going to make it easy on us here. He's going to grab all of his chips and send all of them into the middle, which comes to an amount just under $5,000. Very weird spot here. Skull Mike is not known to get insanely out of line. It's such a weird line that I don't know what he could possibly have here to be raising on the flop and then checking back on the turn. If he did happen to have a hand like pocket 7s, you would think he would be going for more value versus a hand like Ace-King or King-Queen. He's not going to be too often raising a hand like King-Queen on the flop. And like I said, he should be finding a 4-bet with the Ace-King pre-flop. Definitely some percentage of the time, if not all the time. So I don't really know what on earth is going on here. All I know is that it does not feel super comfortable with my pocket 9s. And the other factor is that I just haven't been playing this game all that much. I've been in the PLO streets a lot lately, trying to come up with some sort of thought process, but all I'm really finding in the moment is that I have pocket 9s in a hand where if I make the call, it's going to be a $15,000 pot. I wish I could say I had some sort of scientific reasoning to come to a conclusion that I base my decision on, but in the end, I just decide that Skull Mike is not really one, as mentioned, to get out of line in these games. I give him credit here. And in return, Skull Mike shows us the Queen 9 offsuit. Just obliteration. Just wrecked in this spot. You hate to see that, and that does not feel good, my friends. That's rust, and I feel like if I'm playing this game more often, if I'm playing the 2-card game a little bit more often, or a lot more often, then I would come to the conclusion that this maybe doesn't make too much sense. I'm not really sure what he's finding a raise on the flop with and then checking back on the turn. As mentioned, a flop set you would think would go for value across 3 streets versus a hand like Ace-King. Sure, it's possible that a computer will find a flop raise with a 9-8 of hearts or something like that. Usually in human land, that's not what's going on, though. Those types of hands are usually just going to peel. So unfortunately, I did not have much of a coherent thought process in this hand, and as a result, we get punished. punishment in the form of loss of funds is what we are experiencing at the moment. Down about 3,000 now instead of making that call and winning what would have been the biggest hand of the stream, putting us well into the green, just not to be. And as we head into the next hand, you can tell by my body language what that feels like. We carry on. $50 straddle is on. Florida Bill makes the call out of the cutoff. We look down at pocket sevens in the big blinds. Go ahead and bump this up. Make it $350 to go. Back over to Florida Bill, who makes the call. The two of us go heads up to a flop that comes down Jack 4 deuce to 2 spades. Just the one overcard to our sevens. I'm going to wager some money. That gets the job done, and we get to release the knit button. $440 profit comes our way. And these little hands, they feel good. They are so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. It's not a very interesting hand strategy-wise, but when you lose a hand like that, dragging any sort of chips feels good. Moving along now to hand number 88. Knit game is on. $25 straddle is on. And we look down at the ace-queen offsuit in the small blinds. Let's raise it up and make it $100 to go. Could go bigger here because the straddler has his knit button on. I think that's maybe a little bit of a mistake. Should go a little bit bigger. $100 it is, and we see the 2 callers behind us. And we go 3 ways to a flop. That flop comes down queen high. We're going to c-bet it. We're going to win it. Again, nothing in-depth strategy-wise here, but trying to shake off getting shown down the queen knight offsuit. What is Skull Mike's problem? Seriously. What the hell, Skull Mike? All right, guys, it has been announced in the studio that these are the last 2 hands to be dealt. And when that happens, the cash game often resembles a tournament. And that is the only way that I can explain to you what is about to happen. Because in this hand, the $200 straddle is on. So 5, 10, 25, 50, 100, 200. And in this hand, Florida Bill, off of what is essentially a very short stack with the $200 straddle being on, he goes ahead and open jams for $1,660. My friends, I am feeling it. You know what I'm feeling? I'm feeling the Christmas spirit. Because when action folds around to me and we look down at the ace-8 offsuit and the $200 straddle is on, I've got $6,100 in my stack. And we see a jam of $1,660 in front of us. Not only are these stacks on the shallow side now, but I am feeling the Christmas spirit. We're going to give some action here, my friends. We're sticking the money in there. We came to gamble. As mentioned, I'm wearing a lot of different hats, and I'm not just talking about the fact that I'm wearing the ownership hat, not just the content creator hat, but I'm also wearing this Santa Claus hat, and we are going to combine forces of all 3 of those hats, and we are going to give the action that the people crave. And by the people, I mean Florida Bill. He sticks the money in there. I got you, Florida Bill. I'm giving you the action. Sticking the money in there with my ace-8 offsuit. This is tournament style. The show is just about a wrap for the year. We're going to send it off with a bang. I send my chips into the middle. And action over to Big Tony on my left. And he's got a decision. This is not what we wanted to see. Big Tony in the tank. And Big Tony eventually goes all in as well. That is not how we drew this up, because we are now all in 3 ways after Llama gets out of the way and Big Tony finds himself pocket queens. It could be worse. We do have an overcard. We got 26%. We're going to run it one time because Big Tony only runs it once all the time. 26% chance to win about $15,000. It could be worse. It could be better. It could be worse. We're off to see 5 cards one time, looking for an ace.
Andrew needing an ace from space. Oh, there's the ace right in the window. But a queen right behind it.
Sick reveal. King 10, we all tap.
Our fancy queen's bounces here.
Wow.
Oh, Alex.
Ooh, ouch for Andrew.
He picked up
Holy
an ace.
shit. Ace or an ace? No.
Just an ace.
Ace, just an ace.
No ace and a boat
Nice spot.
for Big Tony.
All right, we got one more hand.
Wins the biggest pot of the day.
All right, have fun.
Stacks before
Play back
Bill.
to Miami.
And Andrew
For
Neeme.
about 10 seconds.
Wow.
All right,
I think it was a crazy
I
sweat
think
for
Big
about
Tony's up 20 grand right now.
Good to see you again.
We'll have one more hand.
All right, guys, last hand. Can we get like a triple, quadruple straddle going on here?
absolutely.
As long as it ends before me.
Get her on Tony.
All right, guys, unfortunately, this fantastically beautiful, amazing Lions Christmas sweater was not of the lucky variety. Tried to put on a show there at the end of this session to wrap up 2024, heading into Christmas and the new year. As per usual, when you really try and force it and make things happen, it does not work out. This is pretty indicative, I would say, of the sort of like interesting spot that I find myself as a former professional poker player turned into now business owner of both a card club and now a restaurant, and also a content creator, and there's multiple lines that I'm trying to straddle, no pun intended there, but just unsure what I exactly should be doing. Should I be trying to play good poker? I don't think so. Should I be blasting off and trying to put on a show? Maybe not, because that doesn't really make for all that interesting strategy content. It's just kind of like me splashing around like a monkey out there. But it sort of is what it is. And like I said, it's really tough to make poker vlogs and attempt to like do hand analysis when I'm not exactly sure what hat I should be wearing on what day. So all that being said, there's a very decent chance that this could be like the last video, at least for a little while, of this very nature. Maybe not. Maybe I'll make another one, January 5th or something like that. Who knows? I do feel like this type of poker vlog has sort of run its course. The intro, bunch of poker hands, outro format. You could find that type of poker vlog on many different channels nowadays. And I don't think you're going to learn too much from watching me play this kind of game, do this kind of thing. I don't know. Lots of rambling thoughts there. The gist of it is we get into the game for $9,000 and lose all of it. I did do a couple of flips after the stream with the guys. I didn't film it. I won one of them and I chopped another one of them. So we win like maybe $1,500 or $2,000 back there at the end, but it's very insignificant. Mostly card dead today, got aces 3 times and then blasted off at the end is the moral of the story there. Right back here, we have a great group of people at a very long table here in the restaurant here at Odds Bar and Bistro, where I'm about to enjoy a meal and a couple of beers with their very friendly faces. Skull Mike is not one of those friendly faces. Absolutely fuck that guy. But life is pretty good. It's going to be a very cool 2025 because more updates to come from this business, this location, and hopefully additional locations. Very much cheers to you guys. I hope you guys are all doing well out there. For me, it's been a very up and down year. It's been actually one of the toughest years of my life, if I'm going to be honest. And I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole, but grateful for a lot of things. This location is definitely one of those things I'm grateful for. My own health, my wife's health, and people not being in the hospital are other things that I'm very much grateful for. So the train is going to roll on. I'm going to have to get a little bit creative going into the next year and try and come up with some new ways to make content, share what I'm up to, stay in touch with you guys in particular. So that's the plan. A little bit unclear at the moment, but the general plan is that. Really appreciate you guys being here and hope all the best for you guys heading into 2025. Many cheers to you guys for being here up to this point, 8 years later and beyond.